no matter what you did and what like role you're playing or anything, you had to adapt to the situation. So I think if I can sum up the whole pandemic in one word, would be adaptation.
The times during the pandemic when it would climb, and I'm on the school outbreak team, and where things would be so busy that you just feel like you're drowning in it, and you just can't, there's never going to be an end, and you just feel like drowning's the best word to explain that.
We're in the ICU, and we have rooms open in the ICU that we've never used since I've worked there, and like that's scary. Like, you know, we have extra rooms open, but we don't have extra staff. So like, how do we take that and maneuver that and work with that? So like, and then, you know, you have like 3 doctors on instead of 1 doctor, and you have like 4 RTs instead of 2. Like those are just it was such a different, surreal feeling to walk in, and, you know, you don't even know what's going on in the other half of the ICU when usually you do, but you don't have time to know what's going on down there. You just got to focus on what your patients are doing, and that's it. So that was a very like real moment for me.
My prof reached out to me and asked, you know, what is your thoughts going forward? Do you think this is reasonable? And I just think that it was great that they reached out to a student and had that student perspective there too.
And you're sitting there and you're listening to your students. The students were really stressed. They were really getting hung up. The daily reports were brutal on everybody. It was information you needed, but it messed with your psyche. One of the things I mentioned earlier, that my students, I wanted to do something for those 2 weeks they missed in clinical. And I put it out there, and I wanted them to write me a reflection on what it was like to be a nursing student at this point in time. And what the students wrote was just so powerful.
I would have to say the very initial part of the pandemic really stood out for me. You know, early on, all of our clinical placements were canceled. We were abruptly sent home. You know, initially we're all thinking, oh, this will be 2 weeks at home, and it turned into months and months. But that very early phase of us trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we keep programming going? And, you know, very quickly our programs were putting fall content into the summer so that we could progress. We were meeting a couple times a week. That's what stood out for me, is that very rapid emergency response. And then it was kind of settling in from there.
Yeah, I would have to say the death of George Floyd is one of those moments that sticks out for me during the pandemic. And not so much because it's related to the pandemic, but because it continues to elevate the lived experiences of people of African descent in North America and internationally. And because it's something that really sparked a movement nationally and internationally. And even though we've been talking about this for a long time, well before the death of George Floyd, there was a different type of unification that happened with people. And we also looked at how other people's lives were being affected by the pandemic. And I think, and it still is happening, you know, when I think about the Indigenous graves and bodies during the pandemic. So there's so many situations that haven't allowed people to have closure because of the pandemic. So I am thankful for the awareness that has been brought into our homes, because you had to be in your homes. You've had to be on your computer. You had to be on your TV. And so pandemic has stopped the busyness of our lives to think about other people's lives.